Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Gardener. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's September 3rd. Have you ordered your spring flowering bulbs yet? Here's a new perspective on planting spring bulbs. They're important resources for pollinators. Most gardeners think about spring flowering bulbs in terms of color, which is something we desperately need after a long winter. But spring flowering bulbs are valuable for another reason. They're an early source of nectar for pollinators. Think about planting these spring bulbs this October to help out bumblebees, native bees, and other pollinators in the early spring. Crocus, tulips, and daffodils are obvious choices. Other excellent spring bulb selections include options like fritillaria, grape hyacinth, winter aconites, snowdrops, squill, and glory of the snow. All of these bulbs can be planted now through the end of October. And don't forget, you can plant early flowering spring perennials to accompany these bulbs. Choose plants like early flowering hellebores and lungwort. Here's today's brevities. On this day in 1802, a 13-year-old boy named George Thorndike planted a tree at Bowdoin College in Maine. Thorndike was part of the first class at Bowdoin. The class was made up of 8 boys. Aside from being part of the charter class, Thorndike became an important part of the college's history. The story happened after Thorndike attended the very first service at the college chapel. As he was leaving the chapel, he spied a little acorn by the path. Thorndike knew enough about plants and trees to know that the acorn was out of place in the pine-laden forest around Bowdoin. Thorndike planted the acorn, and the following year it had made enough progress for Thorndike to move the sapling to the college president's garden. The year George and his class graduated in 1806, they met under the tree to say farewell. The Thorndike Oak became an important symbol for Bowdoin College and a yearly commencement tradition. Students would gather under the Thorndike Oak before the graduation ceremony. And today is the birthday of the botanist Sara Allen Plummer Lemmon, who was born on this day in 1836. Lemmon is remembered for her successful 1903 piece of legislation that nominated the golden poppy, Santa Californica, as the state flower of California. Asa Gray named the genus Plummera in honor of Sara Plummer Lemmon. Plummera are yellow wildflowers in the daisy family, and they bloom from July through September in southeastern Arizona. Lemmon and her husband, John Gill Lemmon, were both botanists. Her husband always went by his initials, J.G., and although Sara partnered equally with her husband on their work in botany, their papers were always published with the credentials J.G. Lemmon and wife. The Lemmons had found each other late in life in California. They had both suffered individually during the Civil War. John was taken prisoner at Andersonville. He barely survived, and his health was impacted for the rest of his life. Sara had worked herself ragged, nursing soldiers in New York while teaching. In 1881, when Sara was 45 years old, the Lemmons took a honeymoon trip to Arizona. They called it their botanical wedding trip. The Lemmons rode a train to Tucson along with another passenger, President Rutherford B. Hayes. When they arrived, the Lemmons set off for the Santa Catalina Mountains. In Eliot's History of Arizona, he recounts the difficulty in climbing the mountain range. He said, "The Lemmons often sat on the stone porch of their cave and dug the thorns and spines out of their hands and feet. And once they saw a lion so large he carried a buck away without dragging feet or antlers." When they returned to Tucson, unsuccessful and discouraged, they were told to meet a rancher named Emerson Oliver Stratton. Thanks to Stratton, they were able to ascend the Catalinas from the backside. When they arrived at the summit, Stratton was so impressed with Sara's drive and demeanor, he named the mountain in her honor, Mount Lemmon. Sara was the first woman to climb the Catalinas. 25 years later, in 1905, the Lemmons returned to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary. When they climbed the Catalinas in celebration, Stratton was again at their side, helping them retrace the steps of their botanical wedding trip to the top of Mount Lemmon. Today, in 1893, the Times out of Philadelphia reported on George Vanderbilt's mountain home. It said that the millionaire had transformed a forest into a blooming garden. Of course, it was describing Biltmore, Vanderbilt's country mansion and estate. Here's what it said. Vanderbilt's first step was to purchase, besides several mountains, 18,000 acres of land. The next step was to restrain the natural temptation to carry out plans of his own and to employ the services of the greatest landscape artist in the country, Frederick Law Olmstead. 700 men are employed, their wages running from $1 per day to the salary of $12,000 paid to the overseer. 3 years ago, the work of transforming old fields, pastures, and woodlands into a harmonious landscape began. Boulders have been set in place, rhododendrons transplanted, and the whole is declared to be a poem in plants, trees, and bowers. Already, by the introduction of mosses and vines at the bridges, portions of the place have taken on the appearance of age, and the appearance of newness has been overcome. In Unearthed Words, here's a poem from John Updike called September. The breezes taste of apple peel. The air is full of smells to feel. Ripe fruit, old footballs, burning brush, new books, erasers, chalk and such. The bee, his hive, well-honeyed hum, and mother cuts chrysanthemums, like plates washed clean with suds. The days are polished with a morning haze. Today's book recommendation is Gardening with Conifers by Adrienne Bloom. This is such a great book. It came out in 2002. It's a fantastic resource, and it outlines the conifers, trees, and shrubs that are available to North American gardeners. It also shares how to combine conifers with other plants and how to use them as topiaries. It offers tips on the care and propagation of conifers. And since it's been out a while, you can get used copies on Amazon for under $8 using the link in today's show notes. Today's garden chore is to prepare a spot for curing your garlic. Garlic needs an airy, sheltered place to cure. And don't forget to order your garlic now for planting in October. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. On this day in 1968, drummer Ringo Starr rejoined the Beatles. He had quit the band 2 weeks earlier. The Beatles had managed to keep the news away from the press and the public. Ringo had quit after feeling like the odd man out. During his time away from the band, he wrote Octopus's Garden on a yacht he borrowed from his friend, actor Peter Sellers. The band asked Ringo to return via telegram. They said they loved him and that they thought he was the best rock and roll drummer in the world. Ringo arrived at Abbey Road to discover his drum kit covered with flowers, spelling "Welcome back, Ringo." Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And while you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. It's totally free. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. And here's a shout out to my amazing social media team: Brooke, Elsa, Emma, Greta, John, Kiana, Maddie, Sailor, Sophia, Paige, and Zoe. You guys are all awesome. Have a great day in the garden, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow.